The real work starts when you look within. And that is when you actually have a conversation with yourself, with your higher consciousness, and you realize I'm unfulfilled because I'm just not in the right space at the moment. And I need to make some changes.
Welcome to And Then I Did This. Prepare to be inspired as we celebrate the unique journeys of individuals who've had the courage to break free and live life on their own terms. Their lives prove that you truly can be free to live your best and most authentic life. Let's get to it. Welcome. I have a very special guest today, Sarah Hussain. She is the founder of SOM. She's a former engineer turned spiritual and wisdom coach. And I would love you to share more around yourself. And then we'll talk through how you made that transition and how you're here touching the world and changing the world.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Lori. It's so nice to meet you and so nice to finally be chatting here on your show.
So great. So great. So talk about your path coming through your education and engineering to the realization that you were wanting to shift direction. That is really an interesting story.
Yeah. I was thinking I'll give a brief introduction about myself. And then, as you said, when the shift happened. So
Right.
from the engineering to a spiritual advisor and founder of SOM. So I grew up in a very academic family, and we were all quite passionate about learning and getting excellence in education. That was the main theme as I was growing up. I have a family of 6 daughters and my parents, and that was the main focus on the family. I grew up, became an engineer, and very academic oriented. And what started to happen around the time I graduated was there were 2 things happening simultaneously. First, I was now out of a system which would incentivize me to do good. I was out of this education system where you do well and you get a good grade, you go higher, and then you do well, you get a better grade, then you get to university, you choose a major that you like, you graduate with good grades, you get internships you like, and so on. So I'm out of that system now, and I'm into the corporate world where I'm not really being facilitated by a university anymore. I'm on my own, and I have to carve my way out myself. So whatever it is that I want to make out of my life, now it is in my hands. So this was happening, and it came with a little bit of a cultural shock for me because at the time I was in Turkey when I graduated from engineering. Although I did a semester in Calgary in Canada, I was still very much in the European, Turkish, that kind of culture. And then when you come to North America, there is a shift of a culture, but also it's a completely new space for me. And I don't have friends, and I don't know the people here. And I now have to make alliances, but I also want to mingle and be part of the corporate community. So that, with the economic situation in the oil and gas, was a factor which got me quite sad because and I wasn't able to make as many friends as like, because life is different after university. You don't have all those opportunities to make friendships, and you don't have the enthusiasm as well because you already have friends, and now you're like, oh, I'm in a new space and I don't know how to interact. So I was coming with a lot of that, and I was also feeling like, oh, now that I'm not in a system where I'm being incentivized, I'm really getting a chance to look within and see if this is something I would love to do. As a petroleum and natural gas engineer, is this something that I want to do for the rest of my life? Is this going to give me fulfillment? So I still got into the workforce. I still started working. It was difficult to get a job at that time, but I pushed through, and I was getting roles, not ideally what I would love, but I was getting roles in the sales domain and other areas which were connected to oil and gas. I was now working, feeling not so fulfilled, and also feeling spiritually inclined to talk about a spirituality and to zone in and, lean more into spirituality. And I should mention this at this moment before I forget about this. As I was growing up, I was born with certain gifts. So I would be able to, have heightened intuition, have a good understanding when it came to other people, relationships, empathy, but also have a little bit more insight than normal for
Mhm.
people of my age whenever I would talk to people, talk to others, or talk to people who have complex situations that they're in. I just have a little bit more wisdom to share. And I
Right.
thought that is it. I thought I'm just empathetic.
Mhm.
I just have good intuition and a good gut feeling about things, and it works out. And
Mhm.
that is all. But what started to happen for me that A, feeling unfulfilled in the corporate world, and B, realizing that my spirituality is when I talk to other people in my atmosphere, not really able to understand it the way I understand it.
Mhm.
So I thought, wow, there is a true disconnect between
Mhm.
spiritualism and science.
Mhm.
Science doesn't really talk about a spirituality. And science doesn't talk about a lot of the areas of spirituality which are so true to the human experience.
Mhm.
So, how do I bridge the gap?
Mhm.
Whenever I talk to my friends who are also engineers, most of them, almost
Mhm.
all of them, they just happen to be quite scientifically driven. They wanted
Right.
to know the rationale, they wanted to know the science behind it. And I felt myself quite dumbfounded in those conversations because I didn't have much to share. So that was a thought. That was something that was going on. But that was not when the shift happened. A few years went by like this. I kept feeling unfulfilled. And also, I started to have life experiences which were really difficult, traumatic, challenging life situations. And, it'd be related to family, it'd be related to love life. And it was just really difficult. And I just didn't understand how to make the most of it. It just really, really was difficult at the time. And around COVID time is when I was healing from those challenges. So what started to happen for me was that I went back to my spirituality to heal. And I started to really, go within. It was such a dark time for me, Lorraine, that I felt that a human being won't be able to heal me. So I
Oh,
can talk to a
wow.
therapist, I can, take help, but I don't think anybody can heal me the way I want to
Right.
be healed.
Right.
And I'm really, really upset. And I'm just
Mm.
very disappointed in so many things. So, but I do believe life is still beautiful. And I
Mhm.
do want to, live enthusiastically
Right.
and make something out of my life. But I feel so defeated in career too. I
Mm.
don't feel fulfilled in what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So during COVID is when I really started to meditate and
Mhm.
dive deep into spirituality, started to really facilitate my healing, hoping to get somewhere, hoping to
Right.
feel alive and happy and peaceful. And, it's okay. I can still build with what I
Right.
have again. So, what I started to get was that there's a lot of resourcefulness when you start to meditate. I started
Mm.
to feel that I have a lot of support from the angelic realm.
Mm.
And when I say these things, I'm completely aware that some people are like, what are you talking about?
Mm.
Angelic realm. But that's what I witnessed. Around that time during COVID, after life challenges, I'm feeling very defeated. Now I'm going back to spirituality. I
Mhm.
got hone into my meditative skills to heal, to empower myself, to find
Mhm.
peace again. I started to also notice that my spiritual gifts are awakening. So
Mm.
I would be able, before I had heightened intuition,
Right.
somewhat had also really good empathy. As I mentioned, when people had something to share,
Mhm.
I would have just more insights to share. And I thought,
Right.
I'm just good at figuring things out when I listen to them.
Mhm.
Even though the information may be limited, I just have a good maybe imagination or idea of what it must have happened. But it was actually more than that. I realized that when I was meditating and getting into my own spiritual awakening, that was people's consciousness that I was able to pick up information from.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Mm.
And particularly third eye meditation, just opening up the third eye, I think that shifted a lot for me.
Mhm.
Because now, from picking up information when somebody's talking to me, I'm able to visually see what must have happened.
Mm.
So, seeing through space and time just became a lot more visual for me. Rather
Mm.
before, it was understanding through when I'm meeting somebody through my feelings and the information I'm
Mhm.
getting and my imagination as what must have happened. And
Right.
now, after meditation, number of meditations, my third eye opened up, and whatever I was feeling, I'm also seeing. I'm
Mm.
also getting a lot of other information from the spiritual world
Mhm.
now. So because I'm so in tune, I'm getting wisdom, I'm getting messages, I'm getting spiritual guidance, I'm getting intuitive hints as to what will happen, how I can, help people, what I can tell them, how I can help them heal. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is really, really interesting. So I started sharing that with my family, and they already were aware, that
Right.
was because I already had a little bit of that. But I was like, no, I think there's something more. And I feel
Hmm.
very confident now that I can help people. I feel that there's something I need to explore. So I'll have my siblings come sit with me and go like, oh, okay, just can you read me? Like,
Right.
because they knew from the beginning, but it was during that time that everything was solidifying. So we were
Mm.
like, okay, let's do it all over again. And so I would read them
Mm.
happen and that happened, things they told me, things they didn't tell me, and things that were really personal to them.
Mm.
And only they knew about it in their
Right.
consciousness. And
Right.
what must have happened in the past with a certain person or in a certain situation, why they were led to that. So, spiritual guidance from source as to why they were in that situation, what needed to happen, if there is an ailment that they're struggling with, what
Mm.
needs to happen for that ailment. So, understanding that there is healing that I've learned to do, there's also reading, but a spiritual guidance, there's a whole spectrum of things.
Right.
And that was quite enlightening. I loved it. I felt like
Yeah.
there's so much there that I can do to help someone. It really transforms the trajectory of their life. So that is where Psalm started.
That's so good. You had like a built-in clientele, your sisters who are ready for you to,
Oh,
practice
so excited.
and thank goodness they were open to you.
They were open, yeah.
Yeah,
And, they
doing
were
that.
often distressed because of their own experiences. And they
Right.
had friends, and then we had neighbors and relatives. And it just started to be like one of those things like, hey, why don't you talk to my sister, she can help you
Right.
out. And then
Right.
now they're reaching out to me, and then I'm
So
helping them out in
good.
their life situations. And that started to open me up
Right.
into the possibility of
Right.
having a full on business where I'm like,
Right.
I will be helping people. I'll get the
Yes.
opportunity to do this because now
Right.
this is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm meant to be of service. But I can
Absolutely.
also research on consciousness and tell people about it through the lens of science.
Right, which is so cool. I want to go back to, I think, just for a minute,
Yeah.
because people listening to this, so many people get to the place of going a certain direction, making certain decisions, then thinking, oh no, I can't change now. It's too late. It's too late for me to do something else, or they can't see their way clear to transition out. And I think sometimes it's common for people to resort to substances to block it, to block whether it's drinking after work or it's shopping or it's some other distraction, to not have to look at that. So I just commend you for taking the steps to heal yourself, recognizing what was going on. I think that COVID period woke many people up, and it was a catalyst for transformation for those who were willing and ready to do that. So I just wanted to comment on that, because it would have been easy had you been inclined for some other direction, but you stayed the course, went through the process of inner work, exploring yourself. I think it's one of the best ways to start a business is teach others what you've learned and conquered for yourself, because you've got all of the lessons that you learned along the way to get you where you are now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for bringing in that perspective. It was not easy. It was really, really difficult. And I remember I think I talked to you about this too in our first meeting. There were so many sleepless nights. There were a lot of sleepless nights in the beginning of COVID because you're pretty
Mm-hmm.
much left with yourself. And the world is,
And
who knows
chaos.
what was
Yeah.
happening. It was
Yeah.
hard to get anything out of it, right?
Right.
So I was just by myself. I was in an apartment in downtown Calgary, living by myself because I needed that space to
Mhm.
heal.
Right.
I was just like, wow, now social media is the only means to connect with people. And
Right.
you cannot meet people because social distancing. So you're really pretty much left with your own
Right.
devices to do
Right.
anything difficult that you're dealing with.
Right.
And I was going through this very difficult healing journey where I'd be crying quite a bit. I was like, wow, I'm hurting because I was going through challenges.
Right.
As I mentioned, I was recovering from them. Then I look at my career and I'm not fulfilled. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in
Right.
life. So, yeah, just going back to that part Lorraine, which you were talking about, where a lot of people, they feel very discouraged.
Right.
100%. It is a
Right.
difficult thing to do. It is sometimes unfathomable because you just don't know what to do about it, what to do
Right.
about feeling unfulfilled. You
Mm.
can talk to your friends, you can talk to your coworkers, you can talk to other people, you can listen to stories, but those things just give you a hint that there's something going on.
Right.
The real work starts when you look within. And
Right.
that is when you actually have a conversation with yourself, with your higher
Right.
consciousness, and you realize I'm unfulfilled because I'm just not in the right space at the moment. And I need to make some changes. And I don't know
Right.
what those changes are. So I
Right.
really encourage people to like tune into their higher self because that is where they will find answers, which higher self consciousness. When you tune into that, yeah, that is where you find the answers. Everybody else just hints to you that,
Right.
yeah, sure, you're not unfulfilled and there is something wrong, but you're left with little to work with. You're given advice as to what you can do, but you're
Right.
left with little to work with. And it is only when you tune in with yourself, which we'll talk about in
Right.
a bit, that is when you start forming your
Right.
correspondence and
Right.
you start being guided.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's taking me back to like 2015 when I left my agency role ad agency role in New York City.
Mhm.
And I had gotten loud messages from my higher self and that, it's time to move on. It's time to not be doing this anymore. And it made me also think of even scrolling through LinkedIn. I think there are a lot of people, and it's no different than social media. People will put out a life or a version of themselves that everything's okay. Like I've got this, or this latest thing happened, and look at me celebrating whatever. And I
Mhm.
know from walking through it that what appearances aren't always, as you were alluding to, is not what's going on. And the longer we drag that out, I remember having the question that I asked myself one day, walking from the bathroom back to my office, when will my sentence be up? And it almost like it was a cage I had created around myself that all I needed to do was make the decision, take the steps, and get out, which is partly why I started You Can Be Free, because we can all be free. It's a matter
Yeah.
of realizing we do have choices, we do have options that may, to your point, we may not know exactly what the next thing is to do, but at least giving ourselves permission to acknowledge how we really feel about our life and what we're doing with our time. That time is the one thing we never get back. It's an investment. Once it's made, you can get money back, you can get a car back, you can get possessions, but time, there's nothing you can do. People with terminal illnesses will give their anything to have the time, to have their health back. So, yeah. Anyway, that I think to that point of we get nudges from the universe, and it's so important to be brave enough and step out. And if you're not feeling confident just doing it by yourself, reach out and connect with someone like you, someone like me, whoever, connect with someone to walk through that process
Yeah,
because it can
yeah.
be overwhelming.
Yeah. And I was noticing that the people I'm speaking with are mostly people who are very happy where they're at. They haven't
Mm,
yet made any changes. So I thought, well, I didn't know whether they will have the right suggestions for me because they haven't
right.
walked my path.
Mm,
And then I remember reading a post because social media, we're so in the algorithm. And so it just gives us the
mhm,
right post sometimes. I read a post which said, go to people who have walked the path, not the
mm,
people who are where you are. Something
mhm.
along those
Yep.
lines. And that was pretty accurate to what you were saying, 110%. You really have to tune in and you have to have a very honest conversation with your consciousness. Otherwise,
Mhm,
it does hurt.
mhm.
And it's not great.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm remembering a reflection also because I had graduated from the New York Open Center in coaching for transformation. And I hired one of my peers to coach me as I was wanting to leave New York so desperately and felt I had so many stories of why I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And I remember sitting on a park bench talking with her on the phone, and she made a statement back to one of the sentences I had said, because I said, it was some excuse. And she said, is that the truth or is that a story you're telling yourself? And it just stopped me in my tracks because it wasn't like, oh, I didn't think I could do the same or make as much or whatever that thing was. And many times we're not able to catch the stories until someone outside ourselves interjects and just poses that question. And it can just be, that was such a profound, to this day, I don't know that she knows that was such a profound turning point, because I literally went back to my apartment and reached out and contacted people that I knew, where I wanted to go. And literally in less than a month, I was packed and moved and in a brand new role. At that point, I was working still in the agency world, but I was on the West Coast. That was where I wanted to be. And it took just someone outside myself to interject that, breaking the cycle of the thoughts to think a new thought. And yeah, so good. So
very
good.
wonderful and very timely as well for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your science background with spirituality and your thinking around that, because I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah. So around that time when I wanted to start SOM, I was noticing that a lot of people still do not understand consciousness, especially when it comes to science. There is little talk about it in the scientific world. There's research that's ongoing, but there's not enough to talk about consciousness with. So I started to look into a lot of institutes around the world at the moment who are doing research on consciousness. And then I found myself talking with someone called Roland McCready. He is the president of Hard Math Institute in Pennsylvania, and he does research on consciousness. So I connected with Roland and I wanted to learn about what it is that he's doing. And so now I'm a part of a project, what is a global consciousness project. And they are studying the consciousness of the world. So in terms of the science part of it, my efforts are to form affiliations to institutes and, organizations that are working to learn more about consciousness and take that knowledge and share it with people on SOM Talks, which is the podcast. Independently, I also love to research on consciousness through the lens of quantum mechanics. And a lot of people are now starting to understand that quantum physics does have bits and pieces of spirituality said in a scientific manner. And I think that is useful. So talking about that, there are parallels between quantum physics, spirituality, and philosophy. And it is very interesting to see how the world of philosophy and science and spirituality starts to merge. And I'm fascinated by it. And that is what I start to focus on the podcast as well. The podcast also talks a lot about self-growth. So how I work is I go to those concepts of science, spirituality, and philosophy, and I draw parallels. And then I make it very simple to understand and relatable in one's current life. And from there on comes the suggestions, tips and tricks, wisdom to share how to tackle situations that they may be in.
It's so great because I was reading back through how we initially met through LinkedIn. Thank God LinkedIn is such a great connector of people.
Love LinkedIn.
Yes. And just reading your focus and then I'm going to link your podcast in the show notes below so people can go and listen because it's so interesting. I mean, the things that you talk about, it's just so interesting. And the guests that you have, sometimes it's you and then sometimes you have a guest, but it's all of it is so interesting. And I think your scientific approach and thought process is unique in being able to connect the dots that have not been connected yet.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, I was saying, to connect to consciousness with how the spirituality and our
how
beliefs.
We operate.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. About the podcast, so I was going to say that I will be starting a new season. I am at the moment recording it. So I'm very excited about it. I'm inspired. Pretty much inspired. I'm in a really good time in my life where I have a lot of time and I'm in the right space where I can pump out a lot of great material. So it's going to be all my personal story plus the scientific findings, whatever it is that I learned because the research is ongoing and it is fascinating. It is robust. So I'm very excited to talk about it. And also the healing power our consciousness brings and how our intentions and actions bring in the healing power and what it is that we need to sustain, but to also thrive ourselves in the current environment. That's going to be coming out soon. By soon, I mean probably 21st of February. Once you put the link in the description box, they should be able to see the updates once they subscribe.
Yeah. And there's lots of episodes that are past episodes that are So
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah,
also.
you
Yeah.
wanna listen to the early Sarah recording from her apartment during COVID. Yeah, please go back to the first episode. I
Yeah.
talk about subconscious mind programming. I still remember everything I talked about because everything is it's my
Right.
brainchild. I've thought
Yes.
about it, I've created framework, I've talked about it. And so yeah, it's a labor of love. I just love it when people listen to it.
Yeah. So good. And I know the subconscious mind, that is fascinating also because of the fact that 95% of our daily operating system, we don't think about what we're doing. We just are habitual creatures. And so whatever we've got programmed in our belief system, that is going to orchestrate and drive what we think is possible for us. So do you want to talk a little bit about that in relation to people not feeling like they can make a transition and how to overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to say, Lorraine, like those are one of the best things for me to research on and to help people with because I'm a believer. I think it's connected to my personal mission statement that I love to see people changing their trajectories,
Mm,
realizing how capable they are and how
right,
powerful they are in their beings. It doesn't
right,
matter where they're coming from, what the beginnings were. If they intend to
right,
change the trajectory of their life, they can and they're more than empowered to do that. So, yeah, to your question, subconscious mind programming. So, for people who don't know what it is, you are picking up on information ever since you're born, even before that.
right.
Even when you were in the womb, you're picking up on your information and it is being collected and stored here in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you grow up, you start to form belief systems and you start to have perspectives. Now your brain is developed and it has all this cognitive power to form belief systems, but also bring forth the programming that you have grown up with. So what starts to happen is that the programming starts to help us make belief systems. And so if somebody's programmed to believe, let's just talk about money
Yep.
because a lot of people they'd love to understand where the programming is coming from. But as
Mm-hmm.
you grow up, while you're in the room or you're at home or outside, you're picking up on the information. And now you start forming frameworks of how things
Mm-hmm.
work. And your early systems, which is your early information that you're getting from your parents, from your grandparents, from your aunts and
Mm-hmm.
uncles and adults around you, they give you an idea of what the world is and let's say what money is and what it can
Mm-hmm.
do for you. So you
Mm-hmm.
can either know that money is, you'll form a belief system which can sound like money is difficult to earn and it goes by
Mm-hmm.
really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be your belief system as you're now going to school and then you go to university. And you're going to notice that what starts to happen with our brain is that we
Mm-hmm.
have something here called the RAS. It
Mm-hmm.
is a system in our brain, which is a filter. It's really
Mm-hmm.
fun. Look it up on Google. It is called RAS. It is a filter that we have in our brain. What happens is that when we have a belief system, our brain uses this filter to find evidence in our surroundings to validate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's a scary. What if your belief system is just not all that great? What if you
Right.
think money is just really difficult to earn and it goes by
Mm-hmm.
really, really fast and people don't like to give money, so it's difficult to find jobs and whatnot.
Right.
What's going to happen is that as you put your foot forward in the world, your RAS system is activated. And
Mm-hmm.
how that belief is going to be validated by a conversation you're having with a colleague, by what you're experiencing and reading on the internet, by what you think is happening,
Mm-hmm.
in somebody's life around you. You're picking up all of that information
Right.
and validating the belief system you very rightfully think you had because of that childhood programming, because of the programming you grew up with, which is that
Right.
money is difficult to earn and it goes by really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens is when you're spending, when you're earning, when you're thinking of money, you have that belief system and you never really fully enjoy earning
Right.
money because, again, it goes by really, really fast and it comes with a lot of difficulty. And you're also
Right.
straining yourself, you know what I mean? And that's the path
Yeah.
you're going with. And now let's look at another belief system one may have. One can think that and money comes easily and when you spend it responsibly and when you're responsible with money, it cultivates into a lot of
Mm-hmm.
wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So, if this is something that is given to them by their parents,
Mm-hmm.
especially whoever is dealing with money at home, if
Right.
it's a goal like when you're responsible with money and you invest in it and you do this and you do that, you can make a lot from that quantity that you have. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great knowledge to
Right.
give to the kids. It's
Mhm.
also something really nice to talk about with the youth because money is what drives everything. So they
Mhm.
need to understand what to do and how to think about money. So now
Right.
when this child grows up, he's going to start forming that belief system. And through the
Mhm.
RAS system, whatever it is that he's doing, it's going to validate that. So let's say that now he's investing and he's learning about stocks or learning about different investing
Right.
possibilities. Any kind of gain, any kind of great output is going to validate that belief
Yeah.
system in him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, going
Yeah.
into subconscious mind programming. This is just a belief about money, but we have belief about everything, including our own image and what we can do in life. It is all something that we have picked up while we grow up. And so I would say that when you're sitting with yourself and you don't feel that you have a great understanding of who you are, trust that when you let go of the older programming and
Mhm.
you look within, you'll start to find that you have a lot of things to offer
Mhm.
and build a belief system based off of that. Ask yourself, tune in, ask what is the belief system that I need to propel forward. And
Mhm.
you are going to notice that your consciousness is very resourceful. So as you sit in meditation and you're asking those questions, you will get the right, precise information that you need to then
Mhm.
move on with. So, as an example, let's say that you're sitting down and you're trying to understand what is the right belief system I need to have about my talents. And
Mhm.
you go to meditation and you're getting the idea that for your talent, your belief system is that when you trust your instincts, great things happen.
Mhm.
And you come out of meditation, now you're thinking, okay, when I trust my instincts. So you start tuning into your instincts and you're like, yeah, I'm doing great things because when I'm
Mhm.
listening to my instincts, they're actually guiding me through the right path and
Right.
to greater things. So this is just kind of an idea of how it works.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a more, you can always learn more, listen to the
Right.
podcast, engage with the website. I'm
Mhm.
here to write to me your thoughts and ideas, but working on yourself, and I know that you're going to agree with me, Lorraine, because you have been on
Mhm.
this path, is one of the most rewarding things that you can do for yourself,
Absolutely.
you can do for your life, for the generations to come, for everybody around you. It
Yeah.
is so empowering to be empowered in yourself, and it is also empowering for other people to be around you and learn from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you talk about that, the RES reticular activating system, yes, I'm so familiar with that and the dynamics of how our beliefs shape what we think is possible because we're meaning making machines and we will look for, oh, this thing happened. So that must mean this. And whatever it is, we will find a way to tie it back to that belief without even realizing, oh, I am just running on autopilot. And one of the things I've done it also is, you know, had written for even myself, write down what are the beliefs around each of the major categories, like money, relationships,
Hmm.
my belief system, work, where I live, and then what is my belief around that? And then what if whatever the limiting part of that is, right on the opposite side of the paper, the opposite of that belief. And so
Mhm.
money doesn't grow on trees, or only the best people get the good jobs, or I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. What's the opposite of that? I am capable of learning all new things and I am abundant and all my needs are met. And like the contrast of that, and to the point of writing it on an index card and carrying it around with you and referring to it, because rewiring our subconscious mind, we have to, it's repetition, repetition, repetition,
Oh, yeah.
which is their like the 369 method where you write whatever your affirmation is and feel it 3 times in the morning, 6 times midday, 9 times before you go to sleep, and go to
Mhm.
sleep with that thought and feeling of whatever that thing is that you're wanting to attract. Maybe
Mhm.
it's transitioning out into your ideal income way of
Right.
working and helping make the world a better place. The other
Mhm.
thing I was going to say is 2025 is a year of shedding. I think we've been going through this since the bell went off with COVID's here. And we've all been going through whatever that process was of either accepting everything that was being said or questioning everything that's being said. And we're going to feel, and anyone listening to this, if you're feeling uncomfortable in your own
Mhm.
skin or where you are at or what's happening in your life, it's because you are meant to shift. You're meant to let go of whatever that thing is that isn't really you.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
subconscious belief you picked up when you were younger, something
Yeah.
that's been reinforced that isn't you.
Yeah.
And I can see you're in agreement with that one.
Oh, yeah, loudly in agreement. And I also do want to add that when you're doing those things, right, when you're writing down your belief systems and
Mm-hmm.
now you're working on rewiring yourself, because sometimes people are like, oh, I've heard this affirmations, they don't do anything. That is true. They won't do anything when
Right.
they're just affirmations. The
Right.
key over here is that when you're sitting down and you are writing those belief systems and you are attempting to rewiring yourself,
Right.
when you're narrating those belief systems to yourself, your impulse will be to take action. You will feel
Mm-hmm.
like you need to take action and you
Mm-hmm.
must follow that because
Mm-hmm.
that brings about the rewiring. A lot of people think that all you have to do is change a perspective and that's it. Sometimes it works if it is something that is of a lower degree. But on the other hand, if there is a belief that is deeply embedded and it is related to how you're functioning in life and your
Right.
operating system altogether, in that scenario, viable action is necessary. You got to do the
Right.
work. And it doesn't mean, oh, what does work mean? So let me help you understand that. So essentially, taking action means that when you're rewiring yourself and you're bringing in the new you will feel the impulse to, okay, I need to clean my space. You clean your space. I need to start working out. I need to do these breathing exercises or this meditation. Start doing this because you are building your toolkit. You're giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself things that you need in
Right.
order to prosper in that belief system, in that new
Mm-hmm.
stage of rewiring. And then
Right.
when you start to do it, you're changing your habits, right? You're cleaning up, you're doing tools like meditation, you're being resourceful towards yourself. Now you're having a different perspective about
Right.
things because you're realizing, oh, this is actually making me feel happy. I'm getting clarity. I think I need to sit with myself and journal a little bit more. I need to
Right.
ponder about this. Now
Right.
you're not going to be having time for things that are not meant for you. So, like
Right.
spending a lot of time on, let's say, social media or just
Right.
chatting or things which are not fruitful for you any
Right.
longer but draining you, you're going to start cutting that out and you'll be very
Right.
selective with what you're doing. I thought this is the icing on the cake. Understanding that rewiring means change of habit, means change of behavior, means change of an identity within self. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to bring about change in your life, that's just how it goes. When a person cannot say the affirmations and yet go through no changes, if they choose to just say the affirmations, it won't work.
Right.
If you're saying the affirmations,
Right.
it's almost like a promise you say to yourself, and you got to fulfill it. You
Right.
fulfill it with these additional things, the change of behavior, a change of habit,
Right.
putting in the action, listening to your intuition, listening to your mind. What you feel like doing? Sometimes you feel like
Right.
now that, let's say, I've set a goal for myself, maybe I really need to study a little bit more. So take out
Right.
the books and study. It's never too late. It's not about judging yourself. Again, it's about facilitating. It's about being who you
Right.
truly are, and it's needed when you're
Right.
looking to change.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of something I read the other day also that was just a reinforcement of what I already know, that action creates clarity. Many times it can be common for people to sit in analysis paralysis. What should I do? Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try that, and not take steps forward by even researching. Let me look and see what's out there, what I could be doing in this area or in this area. What are current trends that are happening? I'm feeling pulled in that direction. What would be some steps? What would I need to do? I mean, I use myself as an example. Like, I was a managing director working for a large ad agency and went to an open house for that coaching for transformation program. And I knew before I left that building that evening, it was a Friday evening, that I caught a cab and got there, went through the orientation. It was just an open house to see what it was. I knew I was meant to do that. And so for the next it was like 9 months and 140 hours of work, technically
Yeah.
work, learning. It was the most alive part of my life,
Yeah.
that when I look back at that time, it was magical. Like the experience, the people, the process, everything I learned, and just being true to myself and allowing myself, even though I was working technically a 9 to 5, which was
Mm.
probably more than 9 to 5. But then on the weekends, it was on those 9 months, we would have 1 or 2 days, a Saturday and Sunday each month that we would get together. And then there was an online class. So it's like taking the action gives you that clarity to move forward. So just reinforcing what you're saying. Yeah. It's not
Yeah,
just thinking it, it's taking steps that inspire you. And you can take a step and then realize, oh, I'm going to go this direction a little bit because this feels right. We don't have to know the whole,
you don't have to know the whole thing.
the whole
You don't have to know the
direction.
whole path. You just need to
Right.
like start taking action. Oh yeah.
Start the
I've
journey.
been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. In addition to what you were saying, sometimes we have paralysis, right? We're not
Right.
just freeze. We're unable to move out of our zone. It could
Right.
be comfort, it could be feeling stuck, it could be lethargy, but we're in a zone and we're unable to move out of it. There is a triangle. The top is emotion, or it doesn't even have to be top, but one side is emotion, one side is thought, one side is action. And all of them are interconnected. So when you start with one, and action, you will feel the emotion as well, and you'll get the thought as well, right? It's just how our body system is. But this is really important for people who are frozen, because it happened to me. And I wouldn't be able to come out of a decision paralysis or just overanalyzing things. And this helps because sometimes it's hard for you to, let's say, feel like doing something, right? But it's easier for you to just do it. And then after doing it, you feel better. Because if it's difficult for you to feel like doing something, it's okay.
Right.
Try taking action. Do you still feel difficult? Try the thought. Does it still feel difficult? Maybe a thought can help you out. You start with one and the other one kind of proceeds by itself. So you start with a thought, the emotion comes by itself, the action happens also. If you start with the emotion, the thought comes, the action also happens. So it's about just picking up one side of the triangle, and you'll see that because we're one body, we're connected. So the others follow. It just helped me kind of stay afloat during times when I was sad. I was very sad and very stuck. Yeah, and I talk more about it in song talks as well. So that's a great tool for people if they're looking to kind of go through the transformation. I'm with you. I've been there. I've done the work. I know what it feels like, and it can get really glim at times. So yeah, keep track of it.
Yeah. And Mel Robbins has that great, I think she's even written a book on it, the 5-second rule. I'll use the example of people wanting to get up in the morning and get up and not hit the snooze button. She would say, just count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just get up. Because otherwise our brain will talk us into, and that could be with anything, going to the gym, like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? We have conversations with ourselves all the time. It's like, if we ever ask someone, do you talk to yourself? It's like, we all do all day long. And we have to stop and sometimes just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just do it.
Yeah.
And then
that's a very smart rule. That's a very smart rule, because you're not giving yourself time to overthink it. You just do it. The focus is on doing it. So yeah, I love that. I also love Mel.
So as a wrap, I guess, what would be some words of advice for people who they may have been where you were, or they may be where I was, like feeling, I know something needs to change and I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, but I'm just not sure what, and I'm not sure that I can even make a change. What advice would you give to people who are listening?
I would give a few things. Firstly, listen to a book called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. She talks about the thought process, thinking good, bringing good to your life. I think it does wonders. It is a good catalyst to get you outside of the state of repeated cycles of just self-pity or not feeling great about yourself. So I think that book is awesome. The second thing is that when you're saying those things to you that you don't know where you are, you're confused, you're right. You're being truthful to yourself, and that's a great stepping stone. Next, I would advise to try out meditation. And there are different kinds of meditations. The one that I'm referring to is when you're connecting with your subconscious. So that is the alpha level meditations and also the theta level meditations. Again, Lorraine will have my information in the description box, so you can reach out to me for help and, guided meditations and whatnot. But if you read into those meditations and if you want to try them out at home, there are a lot of online resources. I particularly love the alpha level meditations. What it does, Lorraine, is that it helps calm your conscious mind. It gets you in a relaxed state where you are passively attentive, and you start to access your subconscious when you meditate there. And that is when a lot of the habits that we hold on to, a lot of that behavior, we're feeling limited in action, those things, you can get help in that state, because what happens is that you're now accessing your subconscious
Right.
You start seeing like, why am I doing this? So if there's
Mhm.
something that you want to get an answer of within yourself, that is a great exercise.
Mhm.
And the third thing I would say is if you're feeling that you're not happy or not fulfilled, it's not going to be that difficult. A lot of people think that making the change is so hard. Starting is the hardest part, and it gets
Right.
easier because you start getting facilitated. Be courageous, and I'm here. Lorraine is there. There's so many other people who are happy to facilitate that, who have done the work. Who you may have friends, you may have family members. Use them as support.
Mhm.
Use those resources. They're incredibly helpful. They're incredibly useful in this time, and slowly and surely just make the jump. Take
Mhm.
action, make the changes. Because when you're stuck in one place, it's just really, really painful. And it's just quite rewarding when you start to make the shift because you start to see the action in my life, the way it has turned around. It's a great story. And someday I'll tell you when we meet. And
Yeah.
it's just taken a massive shift. And it all started with me not wanting to stay stuck any longer. It starts with that small intuitive nudge, and then the trajectory of your life gets influenced.
So yeah, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's time to make a change.
Oh, I love that.
So thank you so much for coming on with me to share your wisdom.
Thank you,
It,
Lorraine. It was
it's
wonderful.
beautiful. And that's a wrap on another episode of And Then I Did This, celebrating the lives of those who've walked away from the beaten path to pursue work and a life that nourishes their soul. If you're feeling inspired and ready to explore your own path to freedom, check out youcanbefree.life, where you'll find resources and support to help you break free and live life on your own terms. See you next time.